In today's Razorback Daily, legendary college football analyst Phil Steele is on the show to give us his take on the Hogs and the rest of the SEC. It's Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I'm Quinn Grovey alongside my man Matt Zimmerman, and you're listening to the Razorback Daily.
All right, Quinn Grovey. Well, we have a very special guest with us on the Razorback Daily, and we've been pumping this up for a few days, and we appreciate Tara and everybody for getting Phil Steele on, one of the top people in college football, and we love getting his magazine and getting all the information. Phil, the only thing is, I always tell, people give me a hard time because I have to use a magnifying glass in my life generally. And so when I get, and yours is worth it. I use that magnifying glass to read. It is so much information. But welcome to the Razorback Daily.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, we try to cram as much information in the magazine as we can, so the point size tends to get a little small, but well worth it.
Well worth it, and it is really. Now, I didn't need that about 10 years ago, and but yeah, the eyes are going a little bit, and even on the daily, I have to pull this magnifying glass up, and they like to give me a hard time. But Phil, it's incredible time.
Hey, Phil, when is that magazine coming out again? When is it coming out?
It's out right now. It hit Barnes and Nobles on July 4th. So it has now been out for officially a full week or so. We actually went to the press later than normal because of the transfer portal. The portal closed on April 30th. We knew all the players that entered the portal, but where'd they land? We gave it the entire month of May and the first week of June, and we've got everybody that's going to play this year pretty much on the right team. There were some magazines that came out about a month before us, and I don't know where they got their stuff, but anyway, we did capture everything, and we had to go to the press. We used to go to the press middle of May. We knew the rosters. Now it's the June 7th is when we went.
Yeah. If you did the middle of May now, Phil, each team would be about 1/3 different, wouldn't it?
Yeah. That transfer portal, guys, has not been a great thing for me. A lot of rewrites in the positions during the magazine. It's a 7-month process writing this thing.
Yeah. And Phil, as we roll and the media days going on in Dallas, and we got a lot of, people down there, and our guys are hitting it on Thursday. So it's pretty exciting, but man, 16-team conference. It continues to grow. It was interesting. I don't know if you took anything away from Commissioner Sankey on Monday with his remarks. Pretty basic, but he didn't act like he said he wasn't out recruiting other teams. I love, the league is a great conference. We all grew up in it. Well, Quinn and I grew up in the Southwest Conference, but so many years in the SEC. Just tell us what you think about the conference right now with the growth.
It's like the third or fourth best conference out there, right?
Yeah.
No, the SEC has always been the top conference is in recent history, and there's no changing that. You're looking at the addition of Texas and Oklahoma just makes it that much tougher. And I think when the playoff comes around, the strength of the SEC will have a 3-loss SEC team in, perhaps over a 2-loss ACC or 2-loss Big 12 team, just for the conference schedule. And I think the first playoff will have 4 or 5 SEC teams in it. So even if your team loses 2 or 3 games, you're still very viable for the playoff. That shows you the strength of the conference.
Yeah, Phil, and we're definitely going to get into that playoff talk with you because I know you have a lot of knowledge about that. When you talk about the SEC, though, I mean, how do you see it playing out this year? I mean, you got those 16 teams coming in, and you got Alabama, you got Georgia. I mean, you got all the regular ones, but you got Oklahoma and Texas. Who do you see coming out in that SEC?
Yeah, first of all, I used to like the divisions because you're predicting, 7 teams or 8 teams. 16 teams, there's only 9 possible outcomes. How many ties do you have to forecast into the thing? But I digress. Let's talk about the strength of the SEC. I do think Georgia is the best team in the SEC right now. And one of the things I really like about Georgia this year, guys, is the overall depth that they have. I think if you go to their third string, they've got a lot of guys who would start for other schools. And that depth is crucial crucial in this playoff era because teams are not only playing 12, 13, 14 games, they're probably playing 15, 16, and you need to have that kind of depth. They also have Carson Beck at quarterback, one of the best defenses in the country, my best offensive line in the country, and their special teams I rate number 3 coming in as well. Now, don't be surprised if Georgia loses a game in the regular season. They've got 3 top 10 teams on the road, Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss. They might drop a game there, but I still think they get to the SEC title game and win it. Now, with the 2 newcomers, Texas and Oklahoma, I think they're both viable candidates, but I went higher on Texas than Oklahoma due to the schedule. If you look at Oklahoma, I rate them number 7 in my power poll, which is the overall talent of the team. I merge my 9 sets of power ratings together and come up with one rating, and they come up number 7 there. But I only rank them number 20 because Oklahoma actually faces the toughest schedule in the SEC this year. They face Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, and Missouri, Tennessee, and Auburn, and they only have 3 true SEC home games. They've got basically 5 away from home. That's why I've got them rated number 20. But Texas, on the other hand, has got the talent and the schedule to contend. Now, if Oklahoma's got 3 SEC home games, that means Texas only has 3 SEC road games. And those road games are against Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. All of them in the winnable category. The toughest teams are at home, and they avoid a lot of the tough teams. They only play Georgia and Oklahoma. They avoid Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, and Missouri. So I like the talent Texas has. I think they have a great shot at getting to the SEC title game. But one other team I want to clearly mention is Alabama. And, Alabama's a team that's dominated the SEC up until the last couple of years, but we're still been there, defending SEC champs. And when Nick Saban stepped down, I thought, okay, they might be in for a rebuilding year, especially when a bunch of guys hit the portal. But a great hire with Kalen DeBoer. DeBoer is 104-12 in his career as a head coach. And he brought in some great transfers himself. Damani Jackson coming in from USC at corner, Keon Saab from Michigan at safety. You look at the offensive line, they bring in Parker Brailsford, who I think corrects those snap problems they had last year at center. They bring in a Lou Groza Award winner at kicker and Graham Nicholson. And I went over the team with Coach DeBoer last year at Washington, and I went over the team with him this year with Alabama, and going over every player. I think he's got more talent on this year's Alabama team than he had last year's Washington team, and he took Washington to the national title game. So keep your eyes on Alabama as well.
Yeah. Hey, Phil, with that, I mean, you talked about those top 3 teams, and there's going to be that second tier that's going to be jockeying. I mean, the LSUs, the Tennessees, nobody really talks about Missouri. Yeah, Arkansas. But nobody really talks about, Missouri as much as well. I mean, just talk about that middle tier that could, be a dark horse as well.
Yeah, and I think when you look at Ole Miss of that next group, they probably have the most talent, and they've got a decent schedule. I've give them a really good shot at making the playoff this year. You got to like the fact that not only do they bring in all these transfers once again, but they were already number 13 on my experience chart, so they had experience plus the transfers. They've got the quarterback and Jackson Dart and a lot of tremendous players. But I mean, how do you discount LSU, for crying out loud? It's Brian Kelly's 3rd year. They're definitely going to be a contender. Tennessee has got Nico at quarterback, and I think that's a big plus for them. They're going to have an explosive offense. How the back 7 on defense comes around is my question. And then let's talk about Missouri. Who's got the best schedule in the SEC? It's Missouri. In fact, I rate their schedule number 62 in the country. Wow. Their non-conference slate is Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and UMass. Okay, 4 wins. You look at the conference schedule, Alabama and Oklahoma, but they avoid Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, and a lot of the big teams. So when you look at Missouri, they've got the talent with their quarterback back and Brady Cook. I like the additions of Nate Knoll and Marcus Carroll at running back. Luther Burden highlights my number 2 wide receiver core in the country, a veteran offensive line. Now, they did lose 5 NFL draft picks on defense and their defensive coordinator, but with that schedule, I think they're a playoff threat as well.
Wow, that's interesting. And they beat us here, and we got to go to Columbia this year. So that's not easy, but we would sure love to beat those guys. Phil, I was born in 68. That's a long time ago. And we've really had maybe, I consider it 6 teams at Arkansas that were right there at the end of the season, a chance to win a national championship. Of course, 64, we claim it before I was born, but 69, and the two teams Quinn was on, we've had a couple other chances. the last being 2011. And this playoff gives, we weren't even close to making the 14 playoff. No offense to anybody at my alma mater, Arkansas. We just never were close to getting into Final Four. This is a big deal for people like Arkansas. It gives us a lot of hope. And I'm sure there's other schools around there that we've talked about. You kind of mentioned that a little bit. But it's really good for college football. So much more opportunity to make it. And Arkansas, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to be in it this year, but we sure got a lot better chance to make a 12 team or a 14 team than we do a 14. Can you comment on that a little?
Yeah, I agree. And I've always been a 14 playoff guy because I wanted the best teams in there. I didn't want it to become a battle of attrition at the end of the season. Give you an example. In the FCS playoffs, there was actually a 3-year stretch. You know, they play so many games where the third place team in a division in the Colonial Conference was playing in the national title game just because they were the healthiest team at the end of the year. I didn't want that. But after last year, guys, I mean, Georgia, I think if Georgia would have made the playoff, Georgia probably would have won the national championship. I thought they had the best team. And then you take a look at leaving an undefeated Florida State out. That got a lot. So if there ever was a year to go to 12, I like it. And think of the fan bases like Ole Miss now. They have a legitimate shot of making the playoff. Penn State, which was stuck in that logjam behind Ohio State, Michigan all those years, they avoid 3 of the big boys in the Big Ten. They might be favored in 11 of their 12 games this year. They've got a legitimate chance at the playoff. So, and how about the group of 5? You know, all those teams right now are alive. Whoever gets there wins it. And I like the fact that the Big 12 champ gets in. And I like the fact that the ACC champ gets in. I don't think a lot of other teams from those 2 conferences are going to get in. I think the majority of the 8 open slots go to the SEC and Big 10. But the fact that you can win your conference and automatically get to the playoff is a plus. So I'm actually a 12-team playoff fan right now.
Yeah. I love it too. It's going to give you so much more excitement. I think it's really going to, I mean, college football has been great. Everybody loves it, but I think it's going to take it to the next level. But you talked about the Big Ten and the SEC in the college football playoff. And I think I saw something where Heather Dinich at ESPN, she was talking about how if they picked the best 12 teams this past year, 10 of them would have been from the SEC and the Big Ten. I mean, which is crazy, but do you see any other team outside of the SEC or the Big Ten really causing problems or being dangerous in a playoff?
Yeah, the 2 teams I would look at in that vein would be number 1, Utah. And I know Utah lost 5 games last year, but the Pac-12, believe it or not, actually had one of the best conferences in college football. They were right up there last year. And they had to play most of the big boys of the Pac-12 on the road. And they did so. You know, they lost their backup quarterback in August, which really didn't get much mention. But then when Cam Rising didn't play, they were down to their 3rd, 4th, and at one point, 5th-string quarterback. And they had to play teams like Oregon State, USC, Washington, and Arizona all on the road last year. They ended up losing 5 games. Well, Cam Rising's back. Teams can no longer stack the box, and they have to fear the pass. They actually have their best receiving core they've had in a while. Kyle Whittingham always has them strong at the line of scrimmage. They were the Pac-12 champs 2 straight years prior to last year's step back. Rising's back, as mentioned, and most of their tough games are at home. They've lost 2 home games in Rice-Eccles Stadium the last 5 years. So watch out for Utah. Strong at the line of scrimmage, veteran quarterback. They can make some noise. And then the other one outside the Big Ten and SEC would be Notre Dame. I do like what Marcus Freeman is doing with the Irish. They've got a top-notch defense this year coming into the season, a lot of strength up front on the defensive line. I rate their secondary number 6 in the country. Riley Leonard comes over from Duke, and Riley Leonard led Duke to improbable first 2 seasons. I had Duke very low on my power ratings, but he's a dangerous QB. If he stays healthy all year, the Irish could be a threat in the playoff as well.
Hey Phil, with that, you talked about Cam Rising. We in the past we've done a pick'em segment on this podcast, and when Cam Rising was playing, I mean that guy, I just love the way he plays, man. I mean he is a gamer. He's tough. He can make throws. I mean the guy is fantastic. So I'm a Cam Rising fan, and I fully expect him to be in that Heisman race as well.
Yeah, I think he will be. And, you know, the thing is, he's not known for running, but in both the seasons where he started the year, he had close to 500 yards rushing along with the passing numbers, which were phenomenal. So, yeah, if you're a quarterback for a team that's contending for the national title, you're in the Heisman mix. Good call there, Quinn.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Hey, Quinn can throw out some pretty incredible stuff every once in a while, Phil. Let me tell you, he's really good. Underrated, I think. Quinn's incredible on that. But hey, Phil, the Pac-12's long gone. That's over with. We thought it was very sad. Quinn wasn't as tore up about it as I was. A league that had been around over 100 years. I thought it was just really bad. And Phil, as we get older, I want you to remember that this old guy Zimmerman at Arkansas said the Pac-12 would rise again. I may not be around to see it. It might be 30 years from now. But the Pac-12, they're going to rally back together at some point because they're going to get tired of that travel. That travel is a big, big deal. And I think that's going to wear and tear on football, basketball, golf, volleyball, tennis, soccer. Just comment on that for me, please.
I'm marking it down right now, Matt, and I'm saying when the Pac-12 conference is back at full strength, I have to put a little note on that page that Matt told me this is 2024, and I've been informed on it. But I tell you what, I would love to see that happen because I think we need a West Coast conference, all right? And we need an Atlantic Coast conference, not an all-coast conference where you've got teams on the East Coast playing the West. Let's have East Coast. Let's have Southwest. Let's have, Pac-12, and let's have the Midwest. I like the regionality of college football, so I do miss that greatly.
Yeah, I absolutely love you saying that.
Hey, Phil, before we jump into the Sam Pittman and the Arkansas Razorbacks, I just wanted to get your take. I talked about Cam Rising as a Heisman candidate. Who do you see around the country who should be who will be thought of as a preseason Heisman candidate?
Pretty much any quarterback on a contending team. So Dylan Gabriel of Oregon, Carson Beck of Georgia, Jalen Milroe of Alabama, Quinn Ewers of Texas, Jackson Dart of Ole Miss, Will Howard of Ohio State, even Cam Ward of Miami of Florida. We'll throw him in there because I think Miami could have a big year. So, yeah, pick a quarterback on a team. Now, I will say this. I think there's a lot of Heisman. I'm a Heisman voter naturally. I just go for the best player at the end of the year. But I think there's a good amount of Heisman voters who would like to see a non-quarterback win the award. So, I mean, if somebody's impressive enough, I think they would get the votes.
That's going to be hard. It's become a quarterback award, boy. I tell you, it's become a quarterback award.
And you know what I miss is that Quinn here was, my magazine wasn't around when Quinn was dealing back-to-back SWC championships back in 88 and 89. So we didn't start the magazine till 95, doggone it.
Well, I'm going to get mine today for sure.
Hey, Phil, we're 10-0. We go to Miami. Quinn is the quarterback, and Steve Atwater, one of our greatest players, he had it in his hand. He intercepts that ball. We beat them. We would have been 11-0, and he couldn't. It was in the end zone, and then they scored right after that and beat us, Miami. But we have dreams of those days again, Phil.
I want to write a book someday, which is called One Play Away, where we talk about how one single play, what it would have changed. And Matt, I'm going to use that in that book when I write it.
Yeah. Hey, they had blown us out and blown Quinn out in Little Rock the year before. And we went down there, and that was the Miami, they were big time. They were playing tic-tac-toe on the sideline in the fourth quarter. They got beat up in the media for doing that. They beat us pretty good. And then we go down there, and we're better. And Quinn Grovey has that football, and he hands it to Barry Foster. And it's 1st and 10 from our own 20-yard line. And Phil, he went 80 yards right down the gut against this great Miami defense. Right down, they split the seams, man. 80 yards is one of my favorite plays in Razorback history. It was awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Arkansas had a lot of good football at that time. A lot of good football from the late 60s all the way through that time. Well, we were just glad that Quinn handed him the ball.
Hey, Phil, a little college football nugget about those two teams. In 87, when we got blown out, Ed Orgeron was an assistant strength training coach. Wow. And he worked personally with me, and then he went to Miami. I told him before he left to go to Miami, I said, Ed, we're going to come down there 10-0, and we're going to wax y'all. And we went down there 10-0. We didn't get the waxing part done, but we had a chance to win. But Ed Orgeron,
how about that?
He worked with me specifically because I really didn't like to work out. So most of the players were paired up with teammates. I was paired up with Ed. We used to call him Hip Sled Ed. We used to pull that sled And so very, very cool. But
Great story, Quinn. Appreciate that.
Home is more important than ever, and Arvest Bank is here to help you with all of your home loan needs. For a new home, a refinance, or making improvements to your current home, get started today at arvest.com/home for me. Arvest.com/home for me. Equal housing lender, all loans subject to credit approval.
But we'll go ahead and transition into the Arkansas Razorbacks, Phil. I mean, Sam Pittman's coming into his 5th year, and he's got a lot of new guys on his staff as well. And just talk a little bit about Sam Pittman in his 5th year and some of the coaches that he's brought in.
Yeah, last year was not a year Arkansas fans really expected, I think, 4-8. But, of course, that 4-game gauntlet in the middle of the season, all away from home, LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, back to back to back to back. And yet 2 of the losses were by 3 points, another one by 7. They could easily have won some of those games. And I think that beat them up towards the end of the year. So I think things will be much better for Arkansas. They don't have that 4-game gauntlet like they had last year. But I think bringing in Bobby Petrino on offense is a good move. Petrino's going to look good because, last year, KJ, I didn't feel KJ was 100% all year. Of course, Rocket Sanders only played in 6 games. The offensive line struggled at times. I think the offense will be improved this year, bringing in a Taylon Green. I like Jaquindon Jackson at running back. Here's a guy that was playing quarterback 3 years ago, moved to running back 2 years ago, and I think he's going to have a major impact this year. The offensive line, when I went over the team with Coach Pittman, he feels it's a much improved offensive line this year. Their OL coach Mateos really captured the group. And defensively, you got to like some of the players they've got coming back. So I think the key for Arkansas and the new coaches that you talked about is going to be winning some close games early in the year and then gaining that confidence level. And then, of course, staying healthy. When you only have Rocket Sanders for 6 games, and when he was playing, he still didn't look 100%, and KJ was banged up, it's tough to win a lot of games.
Yeah,
hey, Phil, where did you have Arkansas in some of those rankings that you talked about with some of the other SEC teams?
I have them down there at number 14 coming into the season, just because, look at the SEC for crying out loud, all the teams that are in there. And they're probably going to be an underdog, I would say, in 7 games this year, maybe 8. But that doesn't mean, Sam Pittman's had 8 upsets the last 4 years. And that's the one thing I got used to with Sam Pittman in 2021, 2022 was Arkansas pulling upsets. And so all they need to do is pull an upset or 2. And I think they've got a real good chance of getting back. I don't think they're a playoff caliber team, but I do think they are a bowl caliber team this year if they can get a couple of get big wins early on.
Yeah. Phil, one thing that our fans, Quinn and I, have been talking about it nonstop really since the end of the season in November when we lost to Missouri at the end, as we looked ahead to this season, as we were going through the transfer portal, was game number 2. And it's a big game. And we've talked about it and wore it out. We are in Stillwater. Hopefully we caught maybe a small break. It doesn't matter when the game play. You got to go win. You got to find a way. But I'd rather play there at 11 a.m. as opposed to a night game. So maybe we caught a little small break there. I thought that was important. So that's a big game for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Can you talk a little bit about that and a little bit about Oklahoma State?
Yeah, Oklahoma State is in fact, they are number 1 on my experience chart this year. They have practically everybody back from last year, 10 starters on offense, 9 on defense, one of the best running backs in the country in Ollie Gordon. You look at the receiving core, they got Presley and Owens and Stribling, all the guys back. Now, Alan Bowman, their quarterback last year, was more of a game manager. He had 16 touchdowns, I think, 14 interceptions. He should be better this year, but it's not overwhelming. But the bulk of the offensive line, they've got 6 super seniors. And that term, super senior, is going to be going away pretty soon when the 2000 class finally over. But 6 super seniors there. You look at them defensively, I think Colin Oliver, their strong side linebacker, is NFL caliber. Nicholas Martin at middle linebacker, another NFL caliber guy. They're a very dangerous team that started playing a lot better once Ollie Gordon got going. So I think if you could take away Gordon, go back to last year, watch the UCF game. They took away Ollie Gordon and UCF pounded them 45-3, but there is a loud stadium in Stillwater. I do like the fact it's 11 a.m. That's a great kickoff.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Phil, just a little bit on Taylor Green. I mean, I love the guy at Boise State. I know he's played some, and hopefully his game transitions to Arkansas. I think it will. I think he's going to have a fantastic season with Bobby Petrino being able to utilize him as far as his legs and his throwing ability. What do you see from Taylor? Do you think he'll be? I mean, because I think he's got to be the key to Arkansas' success.
Yeah, I would think so. And when I watched Taylor Green impressed me in the second half of 2022. He was really good. Boise ignited once he got in at the quarterback spot. I probably expected more out of him last year, and there were times where he was splitting the quarterback position, maybe even lost the job a time or two, it seemed, during the course of the game. But the talent's there. I mean, he is 6'6", 223 pounds, and under Petrino's tutelage, maybe he'll thrive in this thing. And from what I hear, great leadership, one of the more popular guys on the team. Everybody's bought in and they're backing him. And the change of scenery might just have him back to that second half of 2022 rather than the up and down year that he had in 2023. But there's no doubt this guy's talented.
Yeah, we're excited about him. And in the spring game, and we broadcast it on the Razorback Sports Network, a lot of our fans were pretty impressed with Green, and he was throwing the ball when we know he's a runner, a great athlete. And Phil, he really threw the football well in our receiving core, from Andrew Armstrong to Satania to Tesla, Broden. We've got some guys that can throw. And this tight end that got hurt against A&M, Luke, it cost us a lot last season when he got hurt down in Arlington. We got some guys that Coach Petrino's going to get that ball to, don't you think?
Absolutely. And, I'm on the John Mackey Award Committee, and midseason we had a discussion, and it's like, Luke Haas is a guy that we've got to have right up there, and then boom, out for the year after 6 games. What a big loss that was. And then you look at this receiving core, guys, and I think it's a much improved unit. You've got a unit that's big. They can run. They've got the size you want. They've got the speed you want. And the experience level's off the charts. So many guys have starting experience. So it's a deep group. And once again, you go back to Bobby Petrino. He's a guy that can generate some offense and get the ball into the playmaker's hands. So I do think Taylor Green's stepping into a really good situation. And like I said, one of my favorite players coming into the year, Jaquindon Jackson. I think he's going to have a major impact at running back. We didn't see Arkansas's running backs perform like you normally would last year. And I think Jackson steps in, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's a 1,000-yard rusher this year.
Totally agree with that. I mean, I loved his running style in the spring, being able to see him. He runs with great pad level, forward lean, and he's always moving forward. And that's really odd for somebody who was a quarterback, because when you got that quarterback mentality, you ain't thinking about initiating no kind of contact. And for him to be able to switch like that and make that happen, boy, I mean, he's bulked up, he's thick. So the thing about it is, in the SEC, you just got to be able to have some depth, because it's going to be hard for one guy to go all the way through. But I think Jaquindon Jackson is super, super talented, and I think he's going to help this Arkansas football team, especially with their play-action pass game. But, Phil, just quickly on the defensive side, I mean, I know there's some holes that we've got to replace at the linebacker position, some depth issues. I mean, what are you seeing from the defense?
I think the portal additions at linebacker were huge for Coach Pittman, because I like him up front, but bringing in Sori coming in from Georgia, Dix coming in from Marshall, Slaughter from Tennessee, you got Switzer coming in from Utah State, Jacksonville State's Larry Wirth. They brought a lot of solid additions through the portal, and that was the area I was concerned with at the start. I do the magazine in a 3 right-through process. The first one is right after the season ends, and it's when spring signs, and then the third one is after I talk to the head coaches. That's the one that had the most improvement via the portal, and I think that's going to solidify that defense.
Yeah, we love our defensive coaches, and they kept us in a lot of games last year, and they just got an energy, and they're pretty young guys. They're very motivated. The guys seem to love them, and we're pumped up. And Landon Jackson, to get him back was a huge thing for us, Phil, for our defense.
Oh, no doubt about it. And, as you mentioned, while Arkansas gave up 28 points per game last year, it was only 357 yards per game. And a lot of that was attributed to the lack of offense. If you're setting up the defense to have to defend a short field all the time, you're going to give up some points. So I do think that Arkansas's defense is underrated.
Hey, Phil, I think that switching a little bit from the Razorbacks, Quinn may want to circle back to the Hogs, but looking at the SEC, and you talked that and you broke that down so well. But as I look at the SEC and all these conference championship games, are they going to stay in place? Are they going to be there 5 years from now? And right now, you might would rather finish third in the SEC than first or second, and you avoid that game where you might lose your quarterback or your best D-back or your middle linebacker. What do you think about that in the future of the conference championship games?
Yeah, you know what, guys? Prior to the Pac-12 conference demise, I would have said I had an idea what was going to happen in the future of college football, but I have no clue.
Right.
We're trying to figure it out as it goes. Are we going to have one massive conference? I don't know what's going to happen. If I did know, I would tell you, but right now, the conference championship games are important, and like you said, though, correctly, Matt, a third place team may have the best benefit by not having that extra game.
Yeah.
And with that, you could feasibly have two teams play each other 3 times in a season.
You might see Georgia and Texas play each other 3 times this year. You might see Oregon, Ohio State play each other 3 times this year. It would be pretty amazing to have something like that.
That's crazy to even think about.
It is.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. We should do this more often, guys.
Yes, we should. We would love to. You're hard to get, though, Phil. So we're going to hold that to you, man, because you're really good.
Just have Tara reach out. Anytime she reaches out, we get on there.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Phil.
it, Phil. Thank you, man. Well, all right, Z and Tara, as we get ready to wrap up this edition of the Razorback Daily, boy, the knowledge, the depth, the encyclopedia that Phil Steele is, man, is off the charts. The way he breaks it down, I mean, it's really phenomenal. I'm going to go out and get that book. And I'm telling you what, if you're a college football fan, go out there and get that book because it gives you all that information so you can get a feel for what the teams are that we're going to be facing, what players and all that kind of stuff. You'll know. You'll walk into the office armed and ready to talk. But Z, man, that was a great conversation.
Yeah, great. And he knows so much, and whether it's West Coast, East Coast, the South, anywhere. He's just a college football expert, and we get to talk to quite a few people. But to me, he takes it another level, and he can even just at a drop of a hat, mentioning Oklahoma State. He could go in depth about Oklahoma State and what they have. And I didn't know they had 6 super seniors. I didn't really know that Bowman was just more of a game manager than this throwing the ball all over the field quarterback. So it was really interesting listening to him. So we appreciate Phil coming on. And, I think back to our old producer, Bart Pullman. Bart used to always talk about, this is the magazine I get. I don't worry about any of the other ones. No offense to any of the other ones. He said, I'm getting that one. That's the one I use. And I remember going by Bart's office one time, and he had it towards the end of the season, and that old thing was all beat up, and he'd looked at it a million times. And Quinn, I wanted to thank, for those that watch us on Hogs Plus, my background today is Stevens Incorporated in downtown Little Rock. Rob Janes was so gracious to let me. I was down here for seeing some folks with the foundation and also for Team Arkansas practices for the TBT. And Rob let me come up here. I'm on the 22nd floor. It's so nice. It's a beautiful, beautiful building and incredible views. I wish I could show you the view. It's a little, I'm going to try to show it to you. It gets a little, may get to where it's too much for you to see, but it's awesome up here, man, and great people, and they love the Razorbacks at Stevens. So appreciate them for letting me use their building today.
Yeah, that's a nice building, and Stevens, they're really great supporters, and they definitely help the brand of everything we do in the state of Arkansas. Well, all right, Z and Tara, that's how we'll wrap up this edition of the Razorback Daily, a Sport and Story production. I'm Quinn Grovey alongside my man, Matt Zimmerman, and we'll talk tomorrow.